Hi guys, the Tories are having a bit of a meltdown this week over news that the Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner is going to end the right to buy scheme, which was originally brought in under the Thatcher administration in the 1980s. Now at the beginning the policy was very popular. People who were renting their council houses were given the option to purchase the property so it would become their own and something they could pass on to their children. The homes were sold off pretty cheaply and everyone was happy. However, there was a major flaw in the policy which Jacob Rees-Mogg here conveniently leaves out. Also, he seems to show a lack of understanding of how the normal market of supply and demand doesn't really apply to housing.
Over time, socialists changed the badges on their lapels, their slogans, their colours and their flags. But one thing always remains the same. They climb up the ladder, but once they've reached the top, they pull it up after themselves. The latest example is, of course, Angela Rayner, the Housing Secretary, who infamously benefited from Lady Thatcher's policy of the right to buy. Miss Rayner is now reportedly drawing up plans to abandon the policy, so you can't. The right to buy policy embodies everything that is great about conservatism: the belief in social and economic mobility, the belief in home ownership, in wealth creation and prosperity. The policy gets to the heart of the distinction between conservatives and socialists. Conservatives want to create a pathway to prosperity, while socialists want to keep poor people poor in the hope that they will be a captive vote. The proposed move to cancel the right to buy scheme comes from concerns that the council houses sold enter the private market, but they don't stop being houses. A report early this year from the left-wing New Economics Foundation lamented the fact that 40% of former council house homes sold under the scheme are now owned by private landlords. Quelle horror! But socialists also don't understand basic supply and demand. Property being in the private sector is a good thing. The housing crisis is caused by a lack of supply. We haven't built enough homes. More homes enter the rental market. This actually reduces rents and makes them more affordable. But this move also marks a signal that we're not witnessing the resurrection of new Labour, but rather old Labour, Jim Callaghan's Labour. And here is a glorious moment from the Thatcher years when she was up against old Labour.
Will the Prime Minister take time this afternoon to consider the plight of the hundreds of thousands of council tenants who've been encouraged by this government to buy their council house?
Mr. Speaker, as the honourable gentleman is very well aware, we put through a policy of purchasing council houses by their tenants, a policy which was bitterly opposed by the Labour Party, a policy from which many, many people have profited and are very grateful.
For Angela Rayner, the right to buy scheme meant buying her own home and improving her financial circumstances, but it seems such a policy will no longer be afforded to people living in council houses. Up the ladder for Miss Rayner, but it's only snakes for you. As ever.
Okay, a little bit of comedy there from Jacob. Now, oh my goodness. So what I'm talking about when I said that he left out a bit of inconvenient information was that councils were instructed by the Thatcher administration in the 1980s not to build new properties with the money that they made from the sale of the council houses. So the council houses were sold off. That was fine. People were given the option to buy their council house, but no new council houses were built, or not sufficient council houses were built. So this was a major problem. So you had a supply problem. Now Jacob Rees-Mogg, of course, attacks Angela Rayner here because she had benefited from this policy, but it's irrelevant if Angela Rayner benefited or not. The policy stands or falls on its own merit. It doesn't matter if Angela Rayner benefited or not. If the policy is good, it should remain. If the policy is not good, it should go. I also found it funny that Jacob Rees-Mogg described conservatives as wanting to create a pathway to prosperity. What rock has he been living under over the last number of years? Now, when it comes to the right to buy scheme, and he hinted at it here, a lot of the properties were bought up by private landlords. Now, as I mentioned in another video, what's happening in Ireland, a lot of new buildings are being bought up by corporations, by investment funds. So when we talk about supply and demand, let's say, for example, 100 new homes are built. Now, under normal supply and demand, well, those 100 properties will be evenly available to everyone, or everyone who has the money. But that's not the case. What's happening instead is very rich people are buying all these properties. Let's say 100 new homes are built and one individual who's very rich buys 10 of them. Now those 10 may be either sold on for a profit, or they may be rented out and they're no longer available to buy. The same with the investment funds. 40% of new buildings, new constructions in 2023 in Ireland went to these investment funds. They bought up 40%. So it's not normal supply and demand. When you have one rich individual or corporation coming in and buying up a huge portion of the new buildings, both driving up the price, but also artificially inflating the price because they will sell the property on for a profit, or they will take it off the market and turn it into rented accommodation. So Jacob Rees-Mogg either doesn't understand this or he's pretending not to understand this. So once again, I don't know if this is a good idea or not, what Angela Rayner is doing. We're going to have to look into that. But the policy from the beginning was flawed, where council houses were not rebuilt. The stock was not refurbished, was not refreshed. And this was a major problem. And the second point, if new houses are being built, they must go to first-time buyers or people who are actually going to live in those properties, not to investment funds and not to landlords who are going to buy up massive amount of properties just to rent them out. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.